Well, that was pretty uneventful. Hey guys, it's Kevin Smart for the season finale of Big Brother 17, and I was looking forward to this finale. Honestly, I really was. Definitely more than last season, just because I've really been into this season. I've liked the players this season. Even when it's gone down to like the end where it hasn't been the most exciting, I've still really enjoyed it. But this episode was boring. I mean, I was hoping what happened in this episode did happen. Not so much the win, but something that did happen this episode I really did want to happen, and it did. I was happy about that. But as a whole, this episode ended up being very, very uneventful, and definitely some of the rumors I've heard about how this, season has been rigged, I kind of believe after this episode. But let's just get into it. There's a lot to talk about as usual, but actually not too much to talk about. Really, there wasn't too much that happened in this finale. I mean, obviously they crowned a winner and things like that. But let's get into it. So basically, of course, last episode we saw the final three do part one of the HOH competition, and it is a pretty grueling HOH competition, I have to say. I mean, them on that tomato, slammed against a wall. It's pretty dangerous, especially when there's like no wires or anything like that. It was a pretty dangerous competition, but I think for the final three, safety is just not something they worry about because it's obviously supposed to be their most grueling challenge yet. So that's what they make the final three. And Vanessa ends up taking it. Steve falls first, then Liz decides to fall, and I thought it was kind of dumb what Liz did because, Vanessa's saying how, oh, I'm definitely going to take you to the final two. But here's what I'm going to say. I mean, Liz should know this by now. You can't ever trust what Vanessa is going to tell you. You just can't, because Vanessa has not really been honest with a lot of people this season. She hasn't really told the truth a lot, and I just didn't think it was the right thing for Liz to listen to her. But she does. She falls first, and Vanessa wins part one, and basically that's how that plays out. She wins part one. And Steve is very paranoid going into part two. He does not want Vanessa to win. But let me talk a little bit about what we didn't see on this episode that I actually would have wanted to see. Maybe something that I would have enjoyed seeing in this episode is a little bit more footage after the competition. Because really all we saw in this episode was the part 1 HOH, part 2 HOH, the jury getting questioned, and then, things, we got things like that, but we didn't see any footage except for part 1 and part 2. That's really it. Basically, though, Steve was very worried about Vanessa because he felt the game was rigged, mainly because of the events of part 2. The part 2 is obviously down to him and Liz. It's the same thing always. It's them remembering things about the season. It was a bit different, though. They made like a crossword puzzle, which I thought was kind of clever the way they did that. I really enjoyed that. And I thought that was definitely very interesting. And the thing that's really interesting here, though, is, of course, what people have said about this particular event. Basically, apparently when Liz was doing this challenge, there was a question that came up that she did not understand, and production literally got into her ear and tried to help her, and basically told her, that, look, this was meant for... that, this was something that happened to Julia, this was obviously something you couldn't answer, and this really made Steve think that the game is rigged, because here's the reason. Steve, when he, of course, was, when he was doing the same thing, when there was a question he didn't know, nobody helped him out at all. So he really started to think the game was rigged, and we didn't see any of this, probably because obviously production doesn't want to make themselves look bad, but I just found that very, very interesting, and basically Steve did win part 2. The thing that's so weird about it, though, is that Liz was only 3 minutes behind Steve. Like, she was only 3 minutes more than Steve was, and Steve was only 3 minutes behind her. So, it doesn't really make a lot of sense why production did this, and especially if they wanted Vanessa to win, why would they do this to Liz? If this was a season rigged for Vanessa, why get into Liz's ear? I don't understand. I just don't understand why they would get into Liz's ear like that if they want Vanessa to win. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I thought it was smart that Steve started thinking this, because obviously Vanessa really hasn't had that tough of a road, because think about it, anytime Vanessa was in danger of leaving, she hasn't left, and it very much is what's been going on with Derek, and I'm not going to say that that might be true, but after the events of this episode, it might just be. Steve does end up winning part 2, and obviously has the hardest decision to make. But before we get to that, we do get to the jury segment, which I was quite disappointed by, mainly because of the fact that I heard it was a lot crazier than what we saw. And again, it was probably just that they wanted to make themselves look good, especially because this is a Vanessa rigged season, they wanted to make Vanessa look good. Most of the jury's thing with Dr. Will was them yelling at each other about Vanessa's gameplay, and we didn't see any of this really. And again, I really didn't feel Dr. Will needed to be there. I understand that it worked in Big Brother 15, but now it's just getting tiring. I really thought they'd bring someone else in to do it, like, say, Derek, or just anyone else but Dr. Will. It just seemed very repetitive. Like, get somebody else. Change it up a bit. Because it just, the finales are becoming very formulaic. It's like the same things happen every finale. I wanted something different, and we really didn't. And the jury questioning just wasn't that interesting. The most annoying thing about it is that the jury seemed in favor of Liz. Like, they were giving all these reasons why Liz should win. And it seemed like Austin was doing a good job of trying to sway the jury, sway the jury's votes to Liz. That really is what he was seeming like he was trying to do here. But again, it's very hard to take Austin seriously when he, of course, you know, is known as the barefoot blindside. But he also is just hell-bent on revenge for Vanessa. That's what he wants to do here. He's hell-bent on revenge for Vanessa. He wants to get Vanessa out. And obviously, you know, he wants Vanessa to go, and he doesn't want her to win. And you see how much he wants that. It's pretty funny, if you ask me. I thought it was pretty funny to watch. But basically, he, of course, is trying to question, you know, tell the jury that, oh, no, Vanessa shouldn't win, Liz should win. But the thing is, when you think about it, the only reason Liz did so well is because of the twin twist. That's the only reason, is because they kept them till Final 6, and then basically when they both came in the house, they really didn't think about targeting them because Vanessa gave them other options. So there really was no reason for Liz to win, and I did think it was pretty funny how Dr. Will was calling out Austin, talking about how he, you know, Vanessa would have kept him and things like that, and how if he would have stayed tighter with Vanessa, this would not have happened and things like that. I thought that was pretty funny. I definitely like that. But other than that, I didn't find the jury segment that entertaining. Of course, I love seeing Johnny Mac be bitter, you know, at first sound like a bitter jury, but then not. Him just insulting everyone is very funny, and I definitely enjoyed seeing that. That was something I definitely really enjoyed watching. But as a whole, I just found the jury segment not as interesting as it could have been. You know, it's supposed to be one of the most interesting segments of the finale, and it really wasn't that interesting in my opinion. So then we get to what I think is one of the best moves of the season, but really, really killed this finale. Because basically Steve, obviously, is the hardest decision of the season to make. And of course, you know, for anyone, I think the hardest decision is who do you want to take the final two. Because it's not who do you like and who you want to win. It's who do you think you can beat. That obviously is what you're thinking here. And I was just hoping and praying that Steve would do something smart. Because he really has not been that smart all season. And I just kept tweeting on Twitter, you know, if Steve doesn't do this, you know, if Steve doesn't go through with getting rid of Vanessa, he is one of the worst players to ever play this game. So I was very happy when he did get rid of Vanessa. My only problem with this is that it didn't feel like it was off the cuff. It was very rehearsed, and Steve as a whole seemed like he was gonna, like, go into, like, cardiac arrest or something tonight. I mean, it was crazy. He was crazy stressed. He was freaking out the whole time, and it was pretty funny to watch, if you ask me. What was funnier was Liz freaking out when she realized that he is taking her to final two. She was like, oh my god, Steve, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was so annoying when that was going on. But basically, Vanessa leaves, and I was actually very happy about this. I was happy that Steve actually finally had the balls to get rid of Vanessa, especially someone who he's been so tight with and has probably been his closest ally besides Johnny Mac. It was very interesting how he finally got rid of Vanessa. He finally did it, and I definitely like that he pulled that off. He did it very flawlessly. It was very well done. Vanessa obviously was very shocked about it, but she kind of had it coming, I have to say. She definitely had it coming, and especially if this season was rigged, I would definitely believe that because the rest of this episode was very, very boring. It just was boring, and it mainly is because I really feel that they were planning on Vanessa winning this finale, and it just seemed like nobody really gave a shit after this. Julie Chen seemed bored. They had, like, audio problems. It just seemed like they didn't care as much. And there were some things I liked here. I liked some of the things they did better than last year's finale. Definitely, there were some things I liked more, but as a whole, the rest of this finale was just very, very bland, and it could have been more interesting, but I didn't care about Vanessa's, interview with Julie. I didn't really care as much about that as I wanted to. And Julie, you could see, is even surprised. Julie really thought that Vanessa was going to get this, and, she even said, wow. And you could see the audience was just, like, shocked at this completely. Steve was, like, sweating profusely. Liz was just so giddy about her winning. It was pretty annoying. And like I said, I think Liz could have won, but I just don't really like her. Like, you guys don't understand. I don't like Liz. If she would have won, I would have been fine with that, but I don't like her as a person. I just don't like her. As a player, maybe, but as a person, no. She is very catty. She's very kind of, she's very, has so much confidence there. She's very self-centered, and she's not down to earth at all, and she's just not, she's kind of trashy, honestly. People have called her trashy. I would honestly be, yeah, she's kind of trashy. But basically, now we have the final two, Steve and Liz, which I was very surprised about. I honestly thought that it was either going to be Vanessa and Steve or, Liz and Vanessa. That's what I thought was going to be. I didn't think Steve was going to go through with this, and I was like, okay, Steve needs to win this game now. Not so much after the jury questioning. The jury questioning is some of the most boring jury questioning I have ever seen on this show. I was so bored by the jury's questions, and it's just because it's real simple. Steve's things seem very rehearsed and very much like he's reading off a script, and that he was, trying to think in his head, and he was trying not to, like, scream and cry and things like that. And Liz was just very, oh, yeah, I did this, and, then I did this, and I had a twin twist, and I was tight with Austin, and then this happened, and this happened. It just seemed very much, like, redundant for Liz. Like, everything she said was very redundant. Steve just seemed very rehearsed, and I really was not as into that as I wanted to be. You could see that the jury didn't even seem as interested. The only one that seemed genuinely interested was Austin. Austin really did seem, the jury did seem interested, I think, but production as a whole did not care. The funniest thing about this were the audio problems. Oh my god. If I had to pick a, favorite moment of this episode, the audio problems by far. That was really hilarious. I mean, there were so many times where the audio would cut and Julie would be like, they can't hear you at home, and I'm like, yeah, we can hear them at home. So, I'm pretty sure they just said that because they just didn't give a shit. Like, that's why the audio wasn't working, because they didn't care after Vanessa lost. They're like, alright, Vanessa lost, who cares? That's really what they were thinking, and, I understand, like, Vanessa was probably predetermined to win and that they really did want her to win, but they could have put a bit more effort into this, really. It could have been a bit more effort, and it's not that I don't like the final two, Steve and Liz. No, I don't really like them, but I think Steve definitely did deserve to win, and Liz could have, had a good chance of winning too, even though I wouldn't have really wanted it to happen. I think overall, I think they're good players overall, but this just seemed very, very boring and very piss poor to me, definitely. So jury questioning, not really too much happens with that. I wasn't that interested in the jury questioning. And then we get to the voting, which I thought was ridiculous that Austin made it obvious that he wants to be lit. Now, also, I forgot to say, Austin was not barefoot during this. I was very surprised that Austin was not barefoot. I guess he wanted to look good for his girlfriend, but apparently good to him is just jeans and a V-neck. That's not dressing up. Like, Johnny Mac is in a button-down shirt and, like, khakis. And then you have, like, James that, of course, button-down shirt, khakis. And then you have Austin, who's in a V-neck and jeans. And it's ridiculous. He is the definition of just classless. He is tasteless. He's very gross. And just, Austin is an attention whore, okay? He really is. I mean, he's done all of this for TV. That's why he has been the way he has all season, and Austin really has been this attention whore all season, and just Austin, I'm very happy that, that's one of the things that I've absolutely hate about this season, is Austin, and I have to say, Austin could have been a much better player if he would have worked with Vanessa a bit more, if we would have gotten a bit more interaction from him. And like I've said, you guys, I think Vanessa's worst move this season is abandoning Austin and Liz, because it just made things uninteresting. It really did. It made things very redundant. It made things, very like, oh, this is, very formulaic, and it just didn't make things as interesting as it could have been. So, I know it's like the Big Brother season is what it is, but it could have been a lot different than it was here, and I don't know, Austin to me, just a very, very bad player overall. It was pretty funny, though, that I was surprised that he wore shoes, though. Like, he actually had confidence to wear shoes, and, yeah, he actually wore some shoes and got a brain, which, I don't know if he got a brain, but, you know, there was that. Julia could not have been stupider tonight. I mean, Julia was an idiot this episode. I mean, I really have loved Julia all season, but damn was she an idiot. I mean, wow, she was a huge, huge idiot. The question where she talks about, you know, the point where she talks about how Austin has played the best game, I'm like, what? Like, what is this? Like, am I on a different planet right now? Julie is actually dumber than Liz. Like, Julia had a lot of potential. I really feel her stay in the house made her very, very dumb. And she wasn't dumb when she came to the house. She seemed like she was pretty smart. She seemed like she was ready to play. But she never had that opportunity to do that. And I was very disappointed in Julia in this episode, definitely. Meg as well. I mean, I really love Meg. I love Meg as a player. I don't love Meg as a player, but I love Meg as a person. I think she's a great person. She's really fun. She's funny. But she, of course, didn't really understand the game at all. She really didn't. And, yeah, so there's that. But the jury, of course, votes, and that's how that goes. But actually, something I did like that they did this season that they didn't do last season, that they actually gave the first 6 players time to speak. And last season, it didn't seem like they did that at all. It seemed like it took a very long time for that to happen, mainly because the, third part of the HOH competition last season took place for, I think, about 10 minutes, and this season only took 5, which was good, because I'd rather it take a shorter amount of time than a longer amount of time. But I will admit what people are saying, that they need to not cram so much into this episode. They really need to not do that. They need to put the first 2 HOH competitions on the Sunday night episode so it's not boring, which that was, wow. I mean, I've never been so bored at a memory episode. I really haven't. I mean, some of those are really good, but that was legit very boring. And then they should have put, basically, have this be part 2 of HOH, part 3 HOH, and then everything else we saw. That's what it should have been, because they could have had a lot more time to talk to the jury and things like that. But we did get some good stuff here. Devon calling out Austin is by far one of my favorite moments this entire season. I mean, the way she talked about how we never saw Judas and how there was nothing different about it, that was great. I love that Julie actually talked to Devon. You could tell that she was one of the crowd's favorites. She personally is one of my favorites. And someone who, if I think they were to do a Big Brother All-Stars, Devon, I think, is a very good person that could have, won, definitely. Some people have talked about they should do what Survivor's doing with second chances. I think they should do that again. But what I think they should do is do players that were evicted before the jury. Like, do Big Brother before jury. Like, it's all players that were evicted before the jury. That could be very interesting. I feel like Devon is a shoo-in for that. She's great TV. She also is very good at gameplay. She just is really the ideal Big Brother player in my mind. And it's too bad that she left real soon, because it just felt, too bad, because she could have played a great game. Audrey looks like Shelly now. She dyed her hair blonde. Okay. Some people said it looked like Shelly went to Clay, but it kind of seems like that is dead, because they didn't even talk about Shelly and Clay in this episode. The most we got of that was when Shelly, in part 3, the HOH, when they were going through, this person said this person said that. It was, Shelly said that, da-da-da-da, and it was, something about Clay, and she didn't even talk about Clay, so it kind of just seems like her and Clay, as we know it, are over. Clay was never a thing, and really that was just a Big Brother thing. That's all it really was, and now it's kind of over. So there was that. I like that Jason got in as well. When Jason talked about how Vanessa really didn't do anything and how she just kind of cried the whole time. Yeah, that's my problem with Vanessa. Like I said, Vanessa, I think, did play a very good game, but she really let her emotions get in the way. You really have to try to put all that aside and not be so tense. And if there was one way to describe this season, it's emotional. It's emotions over strategy. That was the big problem, I think, with this season, that a lot of players cared more about, focused more on their emotions and didn't know how to put all that aside and focus on strategy. And I know when you go into the Big Brother house, you don't know how it is till you go into the Big Brother house. I understand that. But Think of Dr. Wills, think of the Derricks, think of the Dans. You know, they never let emotional stuff get to them. Even Dan with that, you know, funeral in Big Brother 14, one of the greatest moments ever, that was fake. He never was actually upset. He was just trying to, you know, it was all strategy. And with Vanessa, certain things that she did in this game was based on emotion and not on strategy. And I really feel that was Vanessa's downfall here. That really is why she didn't get further. And plus, a lot of people started to suspect her as things went on, and I really feel that's why Vanessa didn't get further in the game. So then, of course, we get to who won, and I honestly didn't care at this point. You guys might be saying, well, why didn't you care? Why don't you care that Steve won? Why don't you care that Steve made a great move? Yes, he made a great move. Yes, I think it's one of the best moves of this season that Steve did. I think it was about time that he did that. The problem is that Steve has sucked all season, and I knew that Steve was going to win, and I was very disappointed because I simply don't like Steve. Steve is the definition of a very bad Big Brother player. He's not Austin, the worst player of this season, but he definitely is one of the players this season that I'm not very fond of. I mean, he's a man-child. He cries every 5 seconds. He's sweating profusely. He freaks out at almost everything, and very much reminded me of Andy from Big Brother 15, who did a lot of the same similar situations where he freaked out over everything, and also kind of like, at times, Steve was even like Frankie at points. But I really am not a fan of Steve. I was not very happy that he won. It's cool that he did get rid of Vanessa, but it just seemed like Vanessa should have won, honestly, and then this finale could have been a lot more interesting. And again, was this a bad finale? No, it really was not a bad finale, but I myself was just very not that interested in what was going on. I thought, you know, when Steve and Liz just gave that final speech to the jury, like I said, it wasn't very eventful. And then when Steve won, it's like, okay, Steve won. I mean, I kind of forgot that this was the finale. Like, when we saw those final 5 again, those first 6 players, it felt like a different season, and I kind of feel like this felt like 2 different seasons. Like, look at the first 6 players, look at the last 6, it definitely feels like we were in 2 very different seasons. I mean, the first 6 players, I think, were a lot more enjoyable than the last 6, but I do think that it did stay interesting throughout the season. I definitely was interested, but this overall, I just didn't care nearly as much as I thought I would, and basically, Steve is the winner. Congrats to him. It's cool that he was able to get rid of Vanessa, but I myself, I kind of feel like it was a waste. It really felt like this was a waste. It really felt like this was Vanessa's win, and yes, he did win. He did, you know, ruin the chance of Vanessa winning the game, and it could have been very interesting if Steve would have been a more likable player, which I really don't feel he was. I never really liked him as a player. I always felt he thought he was playing a much better game than he essentially was, and I knew a lot of the jury was definitely going to vote for him, and probably the jury would have been bitter if Vanessa would have played the game anyway, and Liz or Steve would have won, because you could tell they did not like Vanessa at all. They wanted nothing to do with her, and they were very bitter about it. But to me, it just seemed like, you know, Vanessa was definitely bitter when she left. You could tell she was very bitter. She was really pissed when she left. I mean, she voted for Liz because obviously she was bitter about it. That probably is why she did that. And I know she had a final 2 with Steve. Like, I know before the finale, her and Steve agreed to a final 2, and then he decided to backstab her, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, in the long run, sounds pretty cool. But Steve, as a whole, I just thought wasn't that interesting of a player. I was very happy with America's Favorite, though. James actually won America's Favorite, which I was happy about. I was fine that Johnny Mac didn't get it. I know a lot of people wanted Johnny Mac, but James, for me, very good, because you know what? He didn't get a chance to play the game like Johnny Mac did, and in my opinion, should have been in that final... it should have been in that final 3. He played a great game and definitely should have been there, but he was also a very, very fun player. He's a really fun guy. He's definitely someone that I would consider myself, you know, allying with and probably be friends with if I were to come into the Big Brother house, and definitely did what a really fun Big Brother player should do. Like, he definitely is the Zach of this season. I'll give him that. He's the Zach of this season. Johnny Mac is probably, like, who could I compare him to? I don't know who I can compare Johnny Mac to. Johnny Mac is kind of his own character. That's kind of who I can compare Johnny Mac to. He's very high energy, but I don't really know who I can compare him to. James, though, I think played a great game, and congrats to him winning America's Favorite. But that's basically it for this season, guys. This season is now over, and I'm surprised that I wasn't more happy about what was going on. In the long run, I really did enjoy the season. I think this is definitely one of the better seasons that we've had in the past several years of Big Brother. You know, definitely the best since Big Brother 14. Finale as a whole just wasn't very good, and I felt could have been a lot better. And I don't want you to think I'm leaving this season, you know, very bitter. I'm not being a bitter YouTube reviewer, like a bitter jury member. I'm not being like that. That's not what I'm saying here. What I am saying, also guys, a lot of people are talking about this. When we did see the jury, we saw someone, like, peeking out, apparently, watching them. And, like they say, Big Brother is watching, and, that was Big Brother. We finally saw Big Brother, I guess, because someone was, peeking, watching them, and that was Big Brother. We saw Big Brother is always watching, and there you go, Big Brother's watching. So, I thought that was kind of funny, but basically, I did enjoy this season overall. I think this was a much better season than we've had. There were a lot of really big personalities. But again, yeah, a lot of the big personalities were evicted first, and that really is what brought this season down. And I really was into it. I tried to stay into the season no matter what, because I never disliked it. Like, I didn't, like, as I said, I dislike Steve and Liz, but they're not Frankie. They're not, like, say, Aaron from Big Brother 15. I don't dislike them like I do them. I really don't like them as people, but I still thought they played an okay game. Steve, I didn't think really played a very good game at all. I think this was kind of a waste of a win, but congrats to him winning. We'll have to see how that turns out. Vanessa gets to be with Mel. She really didn't need the money. There was that. She didn't need the money. When she revealed she was a poker player, I'm like, didn't they already know? Like, she brought it up to them several times throughout the season of her being a poker player. I'm pretty sure she told them. I don't think they knew how famous she was, but I'm pretty sure she did tell them that she knows poker and that she's a poker player and things like that. But overall, guys, this is my review of the finale of Big Brother 17. Let me know what you guys thought of this finale overall. I was overall kind of let down by this finale. It could have been a little bit better than it was. I was very bored by it. I think just Vanessa not winning, as I said, seemed like a good move. But just because it was Steve that did it, if Liz would have done that, that could have been a little bit more interesting. But Steve doing it just kind of brought things to a halt and kind of made things not as interesting as they could have been. And again, like I said, it just seemed very formulaic. And next season, I really want them to do All-Stars. I think it's time to do All-Stars. Not that the cast wasn't great this season, because honestly, the cast was pretty great. I think everyone really had something this season. The only players that I really could say I don't like are Steve, Austin, and Liz. That's really it. I would still watch an Austin, Liz, Julia TV series called Oz Twins. Please make a series. Actually, no. Call it Beauties and the Beast. I would totally watch that, because that would be awesome. Like, Beauties and the Beast, that'd be awesome if they did that. Or do, like, the Trashy Girls and the Attention Whore. That'd be funny as well. I just watch a CBS sitcom around them. That'd be very funny. Apparently, they want to give Vanessa her own show, which I don't think is happening now. I don't know if Vanessa's going to write that book either now that she didn't win. We know that she's supposed to write a book about her strategy, but I don't know if she's going to do that now that she didn't win the game, but we'll have to see. But that's basically my review. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Overall, guys, kind of let down by this finale overall. What do you think of this season overall? Love to hear your thoughts on that. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the season premiere of Empire, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.